Hi everyone, my name is Mrs. Johnston and I'm an art teacher here in Akron Public Schools. And I am going to be talking to you about creating art from almost no art supplies. Can you believe that? It is going to be so much fun. What we're going to do is we're going to use found objects either from around our house or outside to use different elements and principles of art to create amazing projects with no art supplies. Who would have thought? What I'm going to do each time that we meet together is I'm going to give you a different challenge or a different thing to do that teaches you about an element or principle of art, but asks you to make that project using things that you can just find around your house. Our first challenge has to do with balance. Balance, as you might think, is whether you could stand on one foot or could you walk across a balance beam? And you're not entirely wrong. Balance in art is very similar to balance in nature or balance in real life. In order for something to be balanced, you have to find the pieces that work well together. And in art, you have to find different parts that work well together. And I'm going to show you some different examples of balance. And then our first challenge today will come at the end of this video. Are you up for it? So, back to the topic of balance. In art, balance can mean several different things. One is how the different elements, color, line, shape, work together. And then specifically, there are three different types of balance that we see in art. One is symmetrical balance. So symmetry is when something is equal on both sides. So there's an imaginary line, or sometimes the line is there, and the shapes and the colors are in the same place on either side of that line. This is something that you might talk about in art and possibly in math. So anything that I do on one side, I'm going to do on the other side. Now, because we're not computers, it might not look identical, but the idea and whether you know what it is what's important. So symmetry is when things are the same on both sides. That includes the colors, the shapes, and their placement. A place in nature where you might see this type of balance would be on a butterfly. So if you have a butterfly, which I know that you do in elementary school, if you think about that butterfly, the designs on that butterfly are the same color, in the same place, on either side. So that is symmetry. Another type of symmetry or balance is called asymmetrical. And asymmetrical is when, let's get our imaginary line again, is when things are not balanced. So they're kind of off. Maybe one side and the objects and colors that are on it look a lot heavier than the things on the other side. Imagine a teeter-totter with the tallest kid in your class, maybe a 5th grader, with a little kindergartner. That would be unbalanced. And some artists like to use that in their artwork. One of my favorite types of balance is radial balance. And that's the balance that goes around in a circle. Radial, like a radial tire. So for example, if you have a circle, and you divide it into 4 sections, or as I like to say, slices of pizza, I'm going to do it again. Every single slice should be the same because nobody wants that piece of pizza that doesn't have all the good toppings on it. So whatever I put in one slice needs to be in the same place on each slice. And if you think about it, in nature, there are many things that show radial balance. Flowers, specifically sunflowers, show a nice radial balance. And you can create some really cool designs if you've ever heard of a mandala, or if you've ever seen a kaleidoscope that has little pieces of glass in it and you move it and it makes those really cool designs. That's an example of radial balance. So, in terms of art, these are 3 different types of balance. I don't know if I spelled that right. They're all types of balance. And we're going to try some balance in nature. You will have noticed after this part of our video, I'm going to show you some different examples of an artist who works in nature named Andy Goldsworthy. And he uses a lot of balance in the things that he uses. And all of his artworks are created in nature. Go! So the first step in creating rock stacks is rocks. I'd recommend trying to find some that are fairly flat because they're going to stack better. And remember that these rock stacks are actually called cairns. And they were used to guide people along the way as they were hiking or walking, and they would look for these as a marker. So I am going to create a cairn by trying to stack these rocks as high as I can. I'm obviously going to start with the biggest one. And it might take a little trial and error, which means trying different things to get your stack. Often when I do this, I have a lot of tumbles before I get to where I want to be. Sometimes it means flipping those rocks over to see how they balance. And sometimes even rocks that I think were going to be really good just don't work well with the other rocks that I chose. Let's see what I can get going here. You can see that my rocks were getting a little smaller as they go up. Oop, that's not going to work. So you have to be persistent. You can't give up. You have to keep trying new things and be determined to keep going, and know that sometimes you might just need to try a different strategy. And that's how things are a lot. Especially right now. Oh, I don't like that one. So as you can see, I am trying to see what I can get going here with my rock stack. My cairn. Rock number 5. I'm not having such a good rock stacking day, I think. Maybe I'll try and make one in front of that one. Maybe it's that big rock. That's the one thing that I didn't change at all, was that big bottom rock. So I'd like to challenge you to create your own cairn. You might want to collect more rocks than you think you need, because obviously some of mine weren't working as good as I hoped they would. And if you can get different sizes from big to small, it's going to give you some different options when you're doing your stacking. It's kind of fun. It'd be a good challenge to do with your family to see who could stack their rocks the highest. I once did this on a camping trip when it was raining, and stacked and stacked and stacked for at least a good hour. And then Mr. Johnston came along and immediately stacked all of his rocks higher than mine, which, as you can imagine, was frustrating. But I just did it again because there's plenty of rocks to stack. So I hope you have fun with this. I hope you learned a little bit about what these rock stacks were used for. And if you ever go out on a hiking trail anywhere, or look online and type it in, see if you can find any cool cairns. That big one's obviously a failure. So I have, this one has 6. I couldn't find very many smaller rocks, so mine are pretty much the same size, so if they're not perfectly balanced, it's kind of hard to get them to stay. I tend to like the flat ones, but sometimes that's not the best rock. So, I'm sure that you're going to have fun with this. Actually, I think you're going to rock.